Got a little white girl dance going on here.
That's right.
Myself. Hello, everybody. It's Coffee Pan Dulce, and it is Wednesday, February 16th. We've already burned through over half of the month by the time you're seeing this. It is going to be over the halfway point, and it's been pretty amazing. I mean, I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, by the way. My pronouns are she, they, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. How are you doing, Christian?
Dude, you did have a little white girl dance going on there. I wasn't sure what
I had
that was.
A little bit of almost the Cabbage Patch, you know.
I thought, is that the washing machine or is that the reverse cycle? I didn't know what it was.
He's sitting in a chair trying to dance, which is painful in itself because I can't dance either. So anyway,
and you lived in San Antonio? Oh my gosh, yes.
Well, I mean that kind of dance, like
you can do country dance.
Some of the Tejano type dances,
but
it's kind of hard to do it in a chair. I mean,
that's true. That's true. That's fair. That's right. Well, listen, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, as Jenny said, one of your co-hosts, along with Jenny Gunn, Mama Ruth, Barbara Bacon. Barbara and Mama Ruth are not with us tonight again, but Barbara did text me. She says she would be with us next week. She promised. Yes, and so we'll see how that works out. I'm Christian Cano. Today is February the 16th. Did you say that, Jen? I'm not sure if you.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, all right. Okay, I couldn't remember. February 16th, Wednesday.
Join us. Hey, there we go. Again, it's Coffee Pan Dulce, and I'm going to introduce our producer and co-host, Christian Cano. Take it away.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to. Well, we may edit that out. We'll see if that stays in.
I've been wanting to do that for a while. Here lately, I don't know why. Yeah. I think because it's usually just you and I.
Yeah, it has been.
It's like when our show is small, we don't have a lot of guests on talking about stuff. It seems like you're a little asleep at the wheel until we get into the news section. And then once we get into the news, then it seems like your juices start getting pumped in and your eyes start being tight.
Isn't that a name of a country band, Asleep at the Wheel?
Sleep at the Wheel? It could be.
They're from I think they're from Texas.
So
yeah,
it probably
I think they used to be. Yeah. Well, very apropos, Sleep at the Wheel, Texas band. All right, so this is Coffee Pan Dulce. Today's topic is going to be, when we get to it, today's topic is Gen-Xers are angry and hate America. We'll be talking about Gen-Xers, which is a perfect conversation because outside of, I think, Barbara, I'm not sure, but Mama Ruth, Jenny and I are all Gen-Xers. And so we, perfect for us to talk about this since it's about us. So there can't be any, if we're hating anybody, it's us. Well, I don't know if we're not hating. And but before we get on that topic, we'll talk about the three current events. Let's go ahead and introduce yourself and your button. Jenny, please.
Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. I'm involved with the local Charlotte LGBT scene in a lot of different intersections. Of course, we always support on this show Moms Demand Action and gun sense laws. We always support healthcare for all. Our frequent guest, Dr. B, retired neurosurgeon, talks about it a lot and explains a lot of the ins and outs and the mythology that comes with healthcare for all. And if we really want our country to get productive and be like the top 40 producing westernized nations and actually have a competitive chance, healthcare is a big one. I mean, college, healthcare, and job training are big. So we need to kind of get our priorities straight and quit building missiles.
Yep, I agree. It's so easy when it's just you and I.
It is easy. I just like we basically just have a conversation and invite a lot.
That's right.
So
exactly. Well, fun. Since they do not speak on this show, our other host, St. Bernie, want to say hi, and baby Trump Pinata, who has made a comeback in 2022. We'll see. He's keeping an eye on his dad. That should have been one of our topics, Jenny. Let's do four. Okay? Because I'm going to add this fourth one. I know you didn't agree with this, but let's just go off script. All right, but before we do that, let's salute to our neighbors. Whatever you're drinking this morning, salute. I'm drinking that. And we also want to thank our Pan Dulce sponsor and supplier as we get closer to Mardi Gras and Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Manolo's Bakery for all of your pastry needs, your pan dulce or your tres leche cakes, your king's cakes coming up, as Jenny mentioned last week. Don't forget to put your order in tamales, all kinds of wonderful stuff during as we start to come out of this global pandemic, which I don't know if we want to talk about that too. Please visit your Black and brown small businesses or any small business during this global pandemic. All right. So with that said,
I want to say one thing about that.
Sure.
It's always good to support locally owned.
Yes.
Manolo's is a locally owned business, a true American story of really creating something out of nothing. And is just a phenomenal guest of the show, a sponsor.
Yeah.
And just a very, very good corporate partner of many different communities. So it's always good to be affiliated with good people like Manolo. Yeah,
he's an example of a good corporate citizen in your community, Manolo's. And we wish him much, much success in the future with the things that he does. So my buttons, just in case I forgot to do that, was healthcare for all, or Medicare for all, Moms on Action, gun sense legislation, and in my heart, Black Lives Matter for Joe Oldham, who was a guest of our show, who passed away from Charlotte, North Carolina. All right, with that said, I realized, I don't know if I'm saying that. Maybe I don't know if it's the Texas in me, but I'm saying Charlotte, North Carolina. How do you say it? Say Charlotte.
I think that sounds more like a North Carolina thing.
It does sound like it. I was like, I'm using my Texas accent.
But you lived here a long time. Like,
yeah.
I mean, what, 10, 12 years?
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, so Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, I'm getting lazy with my Charlotte. All right, so
that's not a Texas thing. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's not a Texas accent. I'm gonna have to start saying ain't and fixing and those kind of things. So, 4 current events. I'm sure you want to comment on these, Jenny. The first one: Sarah Palin was suing the New York Times for libel. I guess that's what it was, and the case was dropped this week. It was dropped on Monday. The judge said that they did not prove. Anyway, so her libel suit against the New York Times has been dropped. Ted Cruz is in the news again. It's like every other day he's in the news. He's upset, I think, about the Super Bowl halftime performance. He said it was too racy, or I don't know if you want to read in more into that, but okay. The next one is Tucker Carlson. You referred this one, and maybe you can explain to us. Tucker Carlson's got some beef about the M&Ms. Is that right? Okay. Yeah, and then yes. And so the last one was breaking news this week on Monday night. Trump's former accounting firm dropped him and has basically said, anything from the last 10 years, don't believe. And they have said, we will no longer be doing business with Donald Trump. And by the way, if you have anything from him for the last 10 years, I wouldn't believe it. So that's really serious. So
that was a big deal.
Right. Yeah, that's huge. So anywho, so Jenny, I know you want to comment on some of those. So
I mean, the Sarah Palin's lawsuit was baseless anyway. I mean, every legal scholar in the country is like, it's Sarah Palin's obsolete and old news. She was obsolete before she even really began. The Ted Cruz, I mean, I think Lady Cruz is just trying to keep herself in the news cycle because they have the delusion they may be able to run for president in 2024. What they don't realize is they're probably going to get the 14th Amendment slapped down on him, where he won't be able to run for any more offices, including Senate, when it's all said and done. And, he was part of the insurrection. And insurrectionists should not be in public office. Kind of the Civil War, 14th Amendment, Reconstruction kind of thing, rule of law, all the things the Republicans say they believe in. Anyway, let's see, the M&M. So Tucker Carlson got a little pissed off that the green M&M started being more gender non-conforming and went from a masculine look to a feminine look. And so, I mean, Fox News has so many important things that they do on their show, their different shows. the hill they want to die
I did not.
On is anything transgender, anything abortion related,
Okay.
And they basically pretty much nothing else. Oh, and Black Lives Matter in the comments.
Yeah.
It's just very bizarre, that they have to really worry. Like Tucker Carlson, a person that leads his own show on a major news network, Fox News, is worried about M&Ms, candy M&Ms, and the little cartoon images, that are just little cute, they dance around and do silly stuff. It's very bizarre. It was it broke a couple weeks ago. That's weird. It's still hitting the Twitter scape because they made a joke that I'm going to say in the next show.
Okay, all right.
That they've just skewered Tucker on again. Not that it takes to skewer Tucker. Trump accounting thing, like I've always said, the rats start jumping off the ship when it starts to burn down. And I really, really, I don't think this is going to be the last of the announcements.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see, as we get closer to the insurrection trials of the public office holders, once it turned through all 700 or so felons or future felons, I think you're going to start seeing Madison Cawthorn and all these. And I think anybody that has any kind of professional or public association with the insurrectionists, including Trump, I think they're just going to go, we got to move this public. We don't want to go down with the ship. And I think that's just, I think it's part and parcel of what you're going to see. And the fact that he hid and suppressed his tax returns for so long, they still really released them per se. That's just something the New York Times actually did a lot of forensic work and outed his tax return somehow. I didn't know. And it may be with this firm, maybe they're like, well, we kind of outed his tax return. So and we know it's on there. We know how feed it well with a nice glaze on it. So anyway, but
that's crazy.
I'm not shocked. If I owned that firm, I'd be like, those tax returns, they're
those pesky tax returns.
Most of my receipts, they're restored in a Doritos bag that I've had.
My dog ate my receipts.
So but anyway, no big deal. Just add some zeros, it'll be fine.
Of course, like I always piggyback on everything you've said, because you are exactly right with this. The Sarah Palin thing, I think the funniest thing about that to me was this person on one of the shows, I can't remember what it was, tweeted, and I don't think he meant to tweet it the way it sounded, but it's been picked up as kind of like a dig at Sarah Palin. And they said that it's just another thing that Sarah Palin has lost. The last time she won anything was when she ran for governor in 2006. And it sounded like, just the way it sounded. It just sounded like, it was funny the way they said that. Because, she ran for governor in 2006, won. Then she was picked to run for McCain. And then lost, and she has not won any office or anything, any lawsuits or anything since then. So the way they made it sound was like, that girl hadn't won anything since 2006. Anyway, that was kind of funny. The Ted Cruz thing, you and I have talked about this, and we talk about this all the time. I don't understand what his strategy is. Because let's just say he wants to run in he wants to run in 2024 because he likes the adulation of running for office. That's what he does. And he knows that people in Texas really don't like him. So, I think he'd be a little nervous when he runs again in Texas. But let's just say his strategy is almost to stay in the news cycle like every 24 hours. That is the same strategy that Kanye West has. And it appeals to a certain type of person who is on social media 24 hours a day, more of a teenager kind of person. Those are the people that come out to vote at large. People who are older get tired of that kind of stuff. So I don't get his strategy. It's like he's got his two little girls running his daughters running his campaign. I don't get it. I don't know. Maybe you have some insight, Jenny. I try to be.
His daughters do make all of his travel plans according to him. But I did want to share with you the sound of Sarah Palin's, Ted Cruz's, and Donald Trump's career.
Okay. What's that?
It was a flushing sound.
Oh. Well, so anyway. The Tucker Carlson thing, I had not really heard about that. I know you mentioned it, but now you've explained to it. That's crazy. But isn't there already this urban myth, even before all this happened, that the green M&M was for horny people?
Yeah, there's always that. But
when I was growing up.
Yeah, did they? Yeah, I guess they did have green M&Ms when we were a kid.
Yeah, I remember they had green M&Ms, and I remember when I was younger, someone told me, "Don't eat the green M&Ms; they'll make you horny." And it was just like this. That's crazy. And then
you had different childhood.
Yeah, exactly.
We grew up at the same time.
I was also told never to look at a dog when they poop. It would make you blind. All right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. So the Trump thing to me is the biggest. We'll see how this plays out this week. That is the biggest wow to me, that Trump's accounting firm, the people that sign off on all of his stuff every year, and you have to have it signed off at the corporate level and so forth for banks to approve you and everything. Basically, what his accounting firm said, if I read that properly, was, we didn't do anything wrong, but I wouldn't trust any of the stuff that we've given him in the last 10 years, because we know that he changed things up and we weren't aware of it. And so basically what they're saying is, in order for us to save face, because it is so wrong and we're afraid we may get prosecuted, he's no longer, and they've said, we will no longer do business with you anymore. And so it is like, that is crazy. I mean, what other accounting firm is going to pick him up?
Well, and the thing too,
all of his loans and everything that's done on these, anyway, that's.
And a really big point is, when you're talking the last 10 years, you're talking about 2020. So well before he even made the presidential run, that won him the presidency in 2016. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about the last years of his show, The Apprentice. So you're talking about some significant, but I think also too, that's when he was starting to really get in the weeds again.
He was he's getting desperate.
And he was cooking the books and trying to make himself look wealthier than he was and a bigger presence. And we all know, just based on what the reality is of how much little money he had compared to what he was quoting. First of all, he's never been a billionaire. I mean,
he's never been a billionaire. So
stop calling him a billionaire. I don't think a lot of people notice that even Fox News doesn't refer to him as a billionaire anymore, because he never hit $1 billion. He never even came close. Like even when he borrowed, because you can't count borrowed money as liquid assets. Yeah. But he never, he may have had a debt that got up to $1 billion at time, but he's never had cash liquid assets, even with all of his inheritance.
I think I saw an article like a couple of weeks ago where if he liquidated today, he'd only be worth like 36 million or so. I mean, that's still a lot of money, but still in comparison to what he says. But one of the things,
about 5% of what he claimed he was worth.
Of course, fractions.
Like you pull out the debts, you pull out if his properties even sold for what little properties he has left. If he sold every Trump brand and even did the full on ranch and sold even the rats in his Trump rats from Mar-a-Lago, I mean, he still wouldn't be anywhere near $100 million.
I mean, one of the things, and I know that people are going to be looking at this and thinking we're hating on Trump. Yes. But we had permission from his baby Trump Pinata. We're just calling the truth. So one of the things that he was doing, allegedly done, the investigation into him and his companies and so forth. And this is one of the reasons why his accounting firm decided to drop him, was because he was inflating the size. Like an example, he was inflating the size of his penthouse in Trump Tower. He was saying that it was bigger than it was, like most guys. He was saying it was bigger than it was. And they found out because it was bigger than the floor plans that the fire department had for that whole floor.
Well, I think it's easier if we just go, when has he told the truth?
Well,
that's a much shorter list, because I mean, documented amount of times that he lied
Yeah.
on social media tweets
Mhm.
and just in speeches that they documented in his 4 years was like 32 or 37,000 times.
It's crazy.
And I'm like, well, there's only about 1,400 days in that 4 year term. I mean, he really works at life. I mean, this guy lives in an alternate universe that does not exist anywhere but in that really small brain house. Speaking of overestimating.
That's why I think there's some type of delusional, I don't know what it is, but people do that. Yeah.
But don't you think if you've been a con artist your entire career and he going back to the late 70s, he's been in some sort of family business for 45, almost 50 years of some sort, even if you minus out the presidency. But even that he was trying to make money off the presidency. Had his son-in-law auctioning off America. No telling what kind of deals they were going to cut if it got in the second term. We sold beachfront property, the whole state of Hawaii.
That's
and my son-in-law gets a fair market brokerage fee for the whole island chain of Hawaii.
Is my new Secretary of Defense, or I don't know. Anyway, all right. With that, let's take a brief break, and we'll be right back on Coffee and Pan Dulce. Hey everyone, thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying our Coffee and Pan Dulce show today. Don't forget to join us next week when Jenny and I, and hopefully Barbara and Mama Ruth will be back on to talk about what is the dumbest American state, Texas or Florida? Jenny, any?
I'll save it for next week.
That's right. Well, that's next week's show. All right. Well, thank you. Welcome back. Let's dig right directly into our topic. Today's topic could be why are Gen-Xers, I dropped my pod, but we'll keep going. Gen-Xers are angry and hate America. So Gen-Xers are considered people who were born between 1965 and 1980, or 64 or 65 and 79 or so forth. And so you and I both fall into that category. So with this title, and I'll tell you why this title to me was kind of funny, but your first instinct of when we talk about this title, what is that gives me time to reach down out of camera and grab my pod? Go ahead, Jenny.
I guess my first instinct is I think it depends on what viewpoint you have and what intersection you're talking about in the Gen X community. I think a lot of the right-wing well-known Gen Xers that are in politics, which are a lot of the cray-cray governors, like Abbott, I believe, is a Gen Xer. Palin, former governor, the ones that have been in the news a lot, Ted Cruz is a Gen Xer.
Kavanaugh.
I believe Marco Rubio is at the bottom of
he's at the bottom. Yeah.
He's either a very old millennial or a young, but I think he's actually a Gen Xer.
I think Ted Cruz is in there too. But
and Marco Rubio has been in office. I think he's on his end of his second term. So he's probably a Gen Xer. But the reality is, I think the loudest voices in our generation tend to skew more conservative. And you look at the Democratic Party, we have a lot of people in the baby boom generation that are still in control. And then we see young millennials, young millennials in charge, AOC and people like that. There's not a whole lot in between that are well known.
They went Republican.
It's like that switch flipped. There's just not a lot of Gen Xers in there that are leading the party, which is a good bad thing. I mean, the poll, they just did a poll with the youngest two voting generations, and they said if they voted, they would vote somewhere along the lines of the low 60 percentile. And it was a pretty broad range poll. So I think one, it's really good for the Democratic Party, because I think the next two generations, as they come up of age, are going to skew way more progressive. And two, I mean, we've had 12 years of Republican control in the last 22. They've been the dominant force as far as the presidency is concerned. They've got us into wars, deficits, economic bubbles. And so these youngest two generations have seen what Republicans do when they're president, which is absolute disaster. I mean, like Bush was the dumbest president we ever had until Trump came along, and then Trump somehow makes Bush look like a distinguished gentleman, older statesman, like they're hanging out with the Obamas and the Clintons, and and conservatives don't even consider him a conservative anymore. And this guy put us in a two-front war at $8 trillion in deficit, and all. It was just an awesome president. Crashed our economy 3 times, 8 years, but that's how much Trump has skewed our country. And it's created this weird divide. And I think that Gen X has been caught in that wake. I think, and I'm specifically white Gen Xers.
Yes.
One of the I was going with this. I believe. I don't think it's affected. I don't think the LatinX and the Black Gen Xers are conservative, but I think the white Gen X generation, which is dominated by white people, I think we're the majority in our generation. But I think we're also really, really loud, and because of that, and definitely obnoxious.
I completely agree with you, Jenny. The reason I was thinking about this topic was because we have this saying in my family with my brothers. I have 2 brothers. One of my brothers, he has this saying as growing up, "Why are you mad?" And anytime anybody would get mad, he would have this joke to come back and say, "Why are you mad? Like, why are you triggered?" Because, when people get triggered, you're like, "Why are you so mad?" I mean, why? And so every time I hit over the last years, especially since, I've been involved in things politically, I've tried to take a look at the people who are triggered easily, who are mad, who are angry all the time. And as you and I have talked about, it seems like today's Republican Party, they are mad at everything. I mean, I don't know anything that they like or they're happy about. And I think that's in itself a problem that they're going to have to deal with, on their own. So then I started to look at the age groups. And I noticed that baby boomers, they have gotten more progressive. They have gotten older. The Gen Xers, our generation, and people that I know, and this is not scientific, but people that I know and people that I've seen and who tend to be the loudest kind of GOP, QAnon kind of individuals are Gen Xers. And I was like, what is it that, and you mentioned something about this maybe a year ago or so. What is it that was part of our upbringing, the Generation X upbringing, that caused us to be born again Christians, like the movement after 9/11 happened? There was a huge, why Passions of Christ? I mean, the fact that a Mel Gibson Passions of Christ movie could actually make people go back to church. It's like, what is the psychological sociology? I don't know what the term is. There's something crazy about that. You could actually watch that and go, I'm going to go back to Jesus. I mean, that's crazy.
But I think, and you see this with every generation, as generations age out and get closer to retirement age and become the dominant top end age bracket, like the baby boomers are right now. I think a lot of that comes with the older you get, the more you think about your own mortality. With religiosity, especially Christianity, tends to skew very conservative. And their viewpoints, their behaviors, things of that nature. And so I think that's why you saw the baby boomer generation swing so far conservative. And I think that's in all 3 of the largest race demographics, white, black, and brown. You see older Latinx people that are usually, fairly conservative, go along the lines of predominantly Catholic or deal. And you've seen that with Generation X, one of our co-hosts is very a religious conservative and very much youth. And so you see that when they become grandparents and you start thinking about, when you get to our age, you start thinking about, I got 20, 30, 40 years left statistically. We're at least at the top of the hill, starting to look down.
Exactly.
We got to be realistic. You and I both can join AARP at our ages, So
I'm already a member.
Well, you get great RV and discounts,
Exactly.
That's a good deal.
Right. That's right.
So I think when people start hitting those generations, I think some of it's that. I think some of it, we've done such a bad job in this 21st century of everything. I think we've just in the United States, better days are behind her. And I think it's because what we've not done in the last 20 years. But I did pull up a statistic from the NBC exit polls right after the 2020 election. And Generation Z was the highest percentage of dominance for Biden. 65% of the 18 to 24-year-olds, which is the top end of the Generation Zs, the baby Zs, it was 11% higher than any other age group for Biden. So he dominated the baby Zs. And I don't know if that says as much about Biden as much as they were so desperate to see progress and they saw Biden as the only way out of the Trump era.
Yeah, I mean that's a good, excellent point, Jenny. And you and I have talked about this before. And another thing I was going to mention about the Gen-Xers is I was Googling and doing the Google machine trying to find out if there's papers being written about the Gen-Xers. There's a lot of papers over the last couple of years that have been written, and they're starting to call them the forgotten generation. And there's one of them, and they ask, why are Gen Xers consider themselves forgotten? And the main reason is because they're in between the baby boomers and the millennials. There's only 65.2 million of them, and compared to the vast amount that are on both ends. And also there's many other reasons. They were the first generation to grow up with their parents really being divorced. They were the first generation to grow up with being left by themselves to take care of themselves. They were the first generation to really not have a serious war that they were actually in. There was the 80s and the 90s. I mean, there was the Bush 1 war, I think, for a while, but that was not like the 20-year war that we just got out of, that millennials have participated in. And so there's a lot of reasons, but to me, I think nothing speaks better than just looking at the movies that we watched as Gen Xers in the late 80s and early 90s. And that's one of the reasons we put those on our banner for this show: Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink. A lot of these movies in the early 90s, it was this like really innocent. It was like white kid, I have no worry kind of movies. And I think they believe that. And there's actually a lot of LatinX people who watch those movies, and I watched them too. And you thought the image of like the perfect, it was the blonde hair, blue eye, driving the Porsche high school kid. Well, that doesn't really exist. But there was this image that this is the life we're supposed to have. I'm supposed to be like Pretty in Pink. I'm supposed to be like the Breakfast Club. I'm supposed to be like this. And they actually believe that those are things like the I Love. Go ahead.
Do you think because Generation X came of age primarily in the 80s, when we started graduating high school and junior high and high school, and that was the Reagan era, Reagan-Bush era. There was very much a throwback presidency, very much about the glam and glitz of the presidency, a very McCarthy,
showy
1950s. They're really wanting to take us back to the 1950s where, homosexuals and women, and people of color really just didn't have a say. Like, I mean, Reagan was a very dominant political force, but he was also extremely bigoted. and very much wanted. He was, I think, in a lot of ways, he was the original MAGA. I mean, I think he talked about the glory days of the United States and you know, the evil empire of communism, and really tried to push us back that way.
Sure.
One other interesting statistic from that same poll: Trump does not dominate an age bracket to get to the 50 to 64 range. He won 52% of the vote in the bracket from 50 to 64 and 52% of 65 and over. Up until that, all the generations, including 40 to 49, Biden slaughtered him, slaughtered him. It never dipped below. The worst age bracket was 30 to 39. He only won 51% of the vote in that. But anything 29 to 18, he was extremely dominant. And for some reason, 40 to 49 did a slight uptick from 30. But Trump did not win any majority until the 50-year-old and up, which is our generation, outside of our generation, and the baby boomers, of course.
One of the things I've noticed, Jenny, and this is once again not scientific, this is just my own experience, but you and I know, and I know you have a very, very good sense of your pulse is on things that some other people may not have. And I, you know, the industry that I was in, you know, we went through all of our hotels catering towards baby boomers because they were the big business traveler. They were everything was designed around them. We basically skipped the Gen X business traveler. We went from the baby boomer business traveler to the millennial traveler. We went from a Marriott hotel format to a W hotel concept. We didn't go, there was a very brief time period that we really focused on Gen Xers. It was for many reasons. There was the collapse of the stock market in 2008, and then again in 2000. You know, there's a bunch of things that hotels went through. In Texas, for an example, the Texas Savings and Loan scandals that happened. A lot of hotel owners were caught up in that and had to sell their hotels. So there's a lot of, and that's kind of when I grew up was in the business, was when people were buying all those portfolios from the savings and loans companies. And so I don't remember us ever preparing for Gen Xers. We basically skipped them. We went from boomers to millennials. And it was like, go ahead.
But do you think the angst, especially of white Gen Xers, and conservative Gen Xers, do you think the angst came from we lived in a pretty peaceful bubble, or at least what we believe was a peaceful bubble?
Yep.
I'd say the last of the solid state generation, pre-internet generation, and we lived in this weird picket fence idealism, the American dream and all that. But once we got into the real world, which should have been early 90s, late 80s, early 90s for most of us, I think we found out real fast there was nothing ideal about our country.
Yeah.
And it was almost like we just like put the Jake brake on, like on the trucks, like we hear we're like, holy crap, our country's messed up. And we lived in such a shelter because the moment we were graduating and going out into the world was about the same time like Bush Clinton was going in office. That time period.
The first Bush was coming in, and then Clinton came in.
And there was kind of this weird Tea Party angst in our country. And I think we just realized the OJ trials, there were so many things that went on.
That's right.
In the late 80s and early 90s, the Iran Contra, we found out that Reagan was really a piece of crap. You know, and it was very public, you know, and then he just disappeared. You know, and I think a lot of what we thought was really wasn't at all. It never was. And I think you're on mute, but we do need
sorry about that.
and we'll come back off mute when we come back.
That's right. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Christian Cano. Thank you so much for joining us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. And also thank you so much for watching us on Facebook and on YouTube. But also don't forget, you can actually listening to us on your favorite audio podcast platform like Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podcast Chaser, and others. Once again, thank you for so much for watching us and listening to us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. Have a great day. Well, welcome back. Thank you. Jenny, you hit the nail right on the head again. And one of the things I've noticed, and I know this is just kind of my experience, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say. When I was graduating high school, and I'm going to date myself, I graduated in 1985. In my high school, which is a small high school, but it was in a big city in comparison to, I guess, big cities, you were either a roper, which means you were, in the
Cowboy.
rodeos, cowboy, a stoner, which meant you probably listened to AC/DC, kind of more of the. Some people call them stoners, some people call them potheads. Or you were like a new wave kind of person, who listened to maybe Missing Persons, Flock of Seagulls, or whatever. And so so I was kind of almost, or you were like a very, very small percentage of like the Christian. And there was not a big, they weren't big, but they were there. And it seemed like during that time period and the music that was coming out and so forth, there was this it felt like, and maybe I was sheltered, but it felt like there was harmony, that there was acceptance of people. You just accepted the different groups, there were the jocks, the athletes, no one in my high school, no one really picked on anyone because you were just certain groups. Came out of high school, went to college. I was, it was obviously a different kind of group there, but it seemed like people were accepting. I remember in college, we went to gay bars, and we went to gay bars at that time because the cheap drinks, we're just going for the cheap. You take a girlfriend to the anyway, and things seemed to be, and there was a part of me. It was like, oh wow, this is, and then of course the early '90s happened, and the AIDS crisis was happening. It was happening already, but I guess maybe I was a little sheltered to it in certain instances. And then Don't Ask, Don't Tell was happened during Clinton. And then it seemed like that group of people that I was growing up with started to break off a little bit. And those individuals that I thought were a lot more accepting became less tolerant. And that may just be age, or what, maybe they were just angry at their marriage or whatever the case may be. And then 9/11 happened. Once 9/11 happened, everything, I remember things changing completely, and not just from our country, but even politically and everything. And then right after 9/11, Passions of Christ occurred. And this is where things changed in my family, which is why I was referred to. My family went to go see Passions of Christ. A large part of my family became born again Christian. After that movie, it was at the time I thought it was, oh, well, that's great. They're going back to church. But it was like, aren't you the same people that were smoking pot when you were, It's so.
But I also think there was an emergence.
Sure.
At that same time, there was a big push from Christianity.
Yeah.
Where you also, that was Passions of Christ hit about the same time that you had this church-tainment start to really explode. Like Jim Baker, Swagger, all these really charismatic, I call them cult leaders, but Christian leaders that were moving people and taking advantage of movies like the Christian, the Passion of Christ. And there's a bunch of other, I call them Bible thumper movies. I call them rah-rah movies, like, good, and just, drink the Kool-Aid and go, we'll take your check. And we saw a bunch of those, like some football games that were football movies that were all about, indoctrinating people into Christianity. I call them recruiting films.
This is like the time when the Rick Santorums and stuff started to come out.
Correct. And
yes.
That also was, when you think about, and again, I think, because when you describe your late teens and early 20s, I think that was a typical experience of many of us living in that Reagan Bush conservative ether, that our parents and grandparents were kind of still in that Americana generation. And then once we got out, and we also at the same time saw the race riots in LA, and the things with Rodney King and OJ, and we started seeing reality. I mean, the last of the desegregation lawsuits were being, finished in the 90s. We saw the inequities of treating HIV and AIDS patients. We saw a lot of cruelty emerge in the early 90s. And I think it just became more visible. And then it also happened to parallel with the early emergence of the internet. And I think all those worlds collided, and we got caught in the middle, literally, from old solid state baby boomers.
Yes.
And we started having kids, which are now, the millennials, and and the baby boomers had some of the older millennials. And I think those realities just start colliding, and we just got pulled apart.
Yeah.
We never came back together. And I think our generation is probably one of the most fractured generations, because
I agree.
We had the furthest place to fall, and we had the most potential with the least amount of results. And I think
that's a good point.
Failed in many ways. We've never produced a Gen X president. We might not. I mean,
I don't think we will.
Kamala is a Gen Xer, and she
in that case,
so she is our shot, and maybe our last shot, because I really think after Kamala, I think it'll be millennials. I think it'll be millennials. So I think for years we're gonna have millennial presidents. Like I think we're a shot. I think we see a real change in the guard, and I think that's why you're seeing conservatives so freaked out. Yeah, because these younger generations are so progressive. Yep, and they don't want the world to flame out. They don't want to see the human race end in 10 or 20 years. And we've got a real potential. Yeah, not many humans left at 2040. I mean,
what I've noticed is, and once again, like I said, this is not scientific, but what I've noticed, if you look at the people that are so angry on social media, at least on Facebook and some of the more political social media sites, Twitter, those kind of things. Instagram is different, TikTok, and all those are different. It's a different generation, right? And when you look at the people that are so angry, it seems to be more Generation X individuals. And, and then I always yell out loud, why are you so mad? I mean, it's like, first of all, no one likes to be around someone who's just angry all the time. And the Republican Party has become, it seems like, a bunch of drama queens who are just mad at everything. Very rarely do you hear a Republican candidate or even a Republican saying, I'm proud of America. We're doing a great job. Or, the stuff they used to always say that before, we're diversity, we're going in the right direction, we're doing this, or even talk about policy. Very, very rarely do you ever hear them. They always talk about something they hate, not something that they like.
But they don't have a platform.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In 2020, they didn't even put forth a platform under Trump. They didn't even have a national platform for the first time in decades. This ship is like a ship without a rudder, and it seems to be burning down right in front of us. And just like I said earlier about the Trump accounting scandal that's going on right now, it feels like the Republican Party is both trying to claw their way back out of the big old hole they dug themselves into, starting with Bush, baby Bush, and twilighting with Trump. But I think they've done such a methodical job of just destroying whatever shred of decency and sanity that party had, which it didn't have much. Yeah, because Reagan and Nixon were criminals, and I think every Republican president since Nixon on, I think their last sane one was Eisenhower, but from Nixon on, they've all been criminals, and I think they've taken the I guess basically the sound bites of Nixon and Reagan, and just now think that that's just policy when there's just nothing to them anymore.
Yeah.
What,
Well,
do,
listen,
what
we
do
need
they
to say,
stand for? What,
yeah,
what do they
exactly.
actually have? Like, they
Exactly.
don't have a platform. Like, they
Mhm.
literally,
Well,
they don't talk about infrastructure. They don't talk about the environment. They literally don't
they're
have
just
a
angry.
platform.
They're
Yeah.
just angry. Listen, before we start winding down, let's take one more break. We'll be right back on Coffee and Pan Dulce.
Hello, everybody. Hope you tune in to Two Queers in a Truck. It comes on right after Coffee and Pan Dulce. Appreciate you always watching and being there for us. I hope we can entertain you and be in your homes or wherever you listen to us. We're also on Spotify and many other places where you receive your podcast shows. Thanks for listening. Bye. Have a great week.
Bye, boo boo. All right, well, welcome back. So, Jenny, you're exactly right. And that's kind of what I was talking about is that, for an example, I know we're going to have a show in March or April about the trend. I don't know if it's I guess it is a trend. The school board meetings, these angry parents, trying to ban books, trying to, all this critical race theory stuff that they're talking about because they don't want schools to think. And we do want to have a show on that and invite some individuals who are on the other side, trying to protect public schools and encourage our children to think in public schools. It seems like whenever I watch the news or I watch a soundbite or a clip or whatever, it's always a person who looks like a Gen-Xer. Now, that's, you don't know. It may just be an older looking millennial, and I know some white women don't age well. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Besides you. Besides you, Jen.
Be careful on that way. We don't want to.
Exactly.
I've lowered down your misogyny image.
That's right. That's right.
Had a good job of doing that.
So we may have to edit that out. But you know what I mean? Is that they don't look like they're like millennial moms. They look like they're like.
Well, they don't have that J-Lo glow. I can tell you that.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
She's our age.
Yeah, she is. So I wondered, like for example, here in Charlotte, North Carolina, whenever we have some controversial topic, they bust people in from Union County, one of the other counties, and they come in, whether they're religious people, they come in, and they're not even citizens of Charlotte, but they love to tell us what to do here in Charlotte. I don't want those gays. I don't want those, whatever the case. I don't want those blacks, whatever it is. So when I see these school boards, I want to know if one of the school board members would just ask, do you have a kid in these schools? Because you don't really have to be a parent to speak at a school board. Anyone can sign up.
But you should at least still live in a school district.
Well, you would think that, right? But I don't think they have those. They just bombard the school boards. Yeah.
Because that's an interesting topic, because when we were doing the non-discrimination ordinance hearings, especially the city one, even one of the city council members pointed out, you notice all the ones that were against it and against the gay people and all that were all from somewhere else. Literally, almost none of the people that spoke against the NDO lived in Mecklenburg County, and the Republicans that were for it, that spoke at that meeting, all lived in Mecklenburg County. So it was ironic. It was Republicans for it, and then the Democrats that were completely for it were the ones that all lived here. And then those two really obnoxious preachers that went up there. That one Karen that's got up there. Now, not only is the LGBT community just part of the NDO, it covered a lot of other things like pregnant people, natural hairstyles, veterans, which don't necessarily have to be LGBT. They can be, but it wasn't the reason why we put them in there. We just picked groups that traditionally have struggled in Charlotte, North Carolina, and trying to rectify that and give them a way to, gain employment and housing. But anyway, one of the most interesting statistics, and you've seen that with the city, with the CMS schools and even county meetings, where the rabble-rousers, the more conservative ones, tend to. You're right; they live in, in some rural area, Gaston County, Union County. I'm trying to think of the one that's northeast of us.
Union, our Rock Hill, South Carolina. Counties.
but they literally none of them are
Catawba,
Mecklenburg County, for sure not Mecklenburg County, and definitely not city of Charlotte.
And they always,
it's real fascinating.
Yeah, sure. They always say stuff like, if you pass this, we'll never spend our money in Charlotte. We're like, well, you don't anyway. So it's like, bye-bye. Or what is your term? Bye, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia. But but then you look at the average incomes in these different surrounding counties, and most of the Republican rural counties, the red counties, are about half our income, and so
exactly.
It's like disposable income. It's like, I'm like, what's your disposable income? You're on the way out, buy some Bojangles and chicken. like you're not the ones coming to the races and the football games.
We're gonna sound bougie.
Charlotte.
We're gonna sound bougie.
Well, I mean, it's just the truth. I mean,
I agree.
As somebody that does a lot of work with Charlotte Pride, and we track where people come from. Mm-hmm. Most of our attendees, it's been multiple days here when we had in-person prides.
Sure.
Either came from the city of Charlotte, Atlanta, New York City, but they came from major cities.
Yeah.
Now we get some from rural areas, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And but the truth is, it's because people where they're coming from these bigger cities, they actually have a higher cost of living than we do in Charlotte, and it's pretty expensive here. And they can afford to travel and spend 3 or 4 or 5 nights in hotels and go out to clubs and fancy dinners and enjoy the festivities. Which, even though Charlotte Pride's free, you still got to sleep somewhere.
You got to stay somewhere.
They spend a lot of money.
Buy food. So we need to wind down here. Only 5 minutes left, but I just think that it's just interesting, and we've talked about it about the Gen-Xers and why they're so angry and they hate America, and this really relates to this new thing that is coming along. Like Rand Paul, I think, is a Gen-Xer, and he said this last weekend that he hopes these truck convoys come to America and they cause gridlock and all, and it's like, why are you so angry? I mean,
but isn't that interesting, Christian? Their main argument against Black Lives Matter and Antifa to a certain point was that they're both funded by the communists.
Yes.
And their second thing was that it disrupts business.
Yes. And that's why I hope Democrats start now doing the exact same tweets, rhetoric about rule of law, and we can't handle this because they needed the same arguments that they had before. And interestingly, these truckers are actually, the Facebook pages are being run by communists. They're being run by bots from communist countries. And so it's like, anyway, I don't know. I mean, I always have optimism that Americans will see through all the baloney, but that was before Trump was elected.
But don't you think, though, based on the NBC News exit polls and looking at statistic analysis of who voted for Biden and who voted for Trump, one of the good things is that the 2 oldest age brackets were the ones that Trump won.
Yes.
But the good thing is that those age brackets are also getting to the point where they're not going to vote as much because of mobility, because of accessibility. COVID has changed quite a bit. The fact that over 1 million of them are dead and most of them are in those 2 age brackets. The reality is, if they've lost, let's say over 1 million have died between the counted and uncounted, and 70 to 80% of them are in that 50 and up category. That's 700,000 less predominantly Republican votes that are off the ledgers. I mean, and I'm not making light of it, but our generation and the baby boom generation that is fairly conservative leaning, I think they're reaping what they sowed for the last 20 years.
I agree. Yeah. And so I guess as we end the show, we should ask, should we care if they're angry? And I mean,
well, I think the conservatives white conservative and Latinx conservative especially,
Yes.
that skew more Republican, vote more Republican, vote more conservatively. It seems like they're getting their comeuppance. I mean, like, you know, like they, and I'm talking about the rank and file voter,
Yeah.
that just blindly followed this death cult over the cliffs of insanity and supported a president and his politics that had no platform, no direction, no leadership history, no idea what he was talking about.
Yep.
And our ship, it just like, you know, Trump had one agenda and the Republicans had another. And what he did and what he claimed he was going to do not match at all.
No, yeah, he made.
They're disillusioned is the 20 years of their conservative voting pattern has not paid off the way they think it has. And I think they're very disappointed.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think and we'll see. I mean, I know everyone says this election year is the most important. Seems like every year is that. But 2022 really is going to be an important barometer of where we are as a country, where Gen-Xers are voting, especially within the Latinx community. In Texas, for an example, it'd be interesting to see where the Latinx voters are now the majority voter. And if I know there's this. There's the Gen X Latinx individuals, people my age, have been allowing the Republicans to stay in office because for whatever reason, for pro-life or whatever the case may be. But now that the state is becoming browner and the younger people are more progressive, are they going to be able to convince their parents, you've been voting against your best interest all this time by voting for Abbott? Abbott still thinks you're less than he is. And it'd be interesting to see. I know, like in the Valley area, that a lot more Republicans are registering that are Latino or Latinx. But you have to put that in perspective. You have to realize that these are people who are 45 to 60 years old. They're born again. They're not Catholic. They're more Christian. In our family, they're what we call white wannabes. They believe if they join this church, they will have the same opportunities and the same acceptance as their white friend they work with. That's not how it works. And there are many people. It never does. And unfortunately, what it takes is for them to hear a joke about some person coming over that they see the light. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling there, but it'd be interesting to see what's happening. Yeah. So we do need to end up. I do want to remind everyone that 15 minutes after this show, our other show that Jenny leads, Two Queers in a Truck, will be on. So please stay tuned. And also, we have one more show in the month of February next week. It should be an exciting show. Hopefully, we'll have Barbara back for that show. And maybe we'll have Mama Ruth. We'll see if she decides to join us for that show. What is the dumbest America state? Texas or Florida? It's a tough battle, but we will be talking about which one is. And there's actually data, IQ data, that we're going to be sharing on next week's show. So yeah. So with that said, so with that said, Jenny, tell us where you're going to be in 30 seconds or less, and then we'll wind down and get ready for our next one.
Well, I will be right here in about 15 minutes. And then this weekend coming up, I have a Stonewall esports event with Erica Chanel and company doing a drag performance and a Monopoly tournament and board game tournaments. And so it's going to be in freestyle gaming. So I'm super excited.
Oh, wow.
About that. And it's free and open to everybody. I hope everybody that has interest and they live in the greater Charlotte area, they can come out and join us at Bar Argonne.
Excellent. Well, I will be here. Football season is over. So it is. I know. It was a good game. It was an exciting game. I don't know if you watched it, but it was an exciting game. I do want to remind everyone that you can watch us as you always do here on Facebook or on YouTube on our video podcast, but you can also listen to us anytime you want to or download us on our audio podcast platforms like Apple, Google. We are now on iHeartRadio, so I'm very excited about that. Spotify, we still gotta plug them a little bit, and Amazon
Right,
and all
yeah.
the other platforms. So please share us when you're on the treadmill, cleaning the house, whatever you're doing, over a glass of wine. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Jenny, as always, great to have the conversation with you and for people to listen to what we have to say. So we'll see you next week. Do you want music, or how do you want to do this?
Let's do some little quick music interlude and let's get out of here.
How's that?
That's perfect.
Bye, y'all. Okay, I stopped it. We're still on.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate y'all watching every week, and we had a great time talking about Generation X and why they're so angry. And hopefully you can dodge all the QAnon Karens this week and have a safe week. Happy Valentine's.
Bye. How's that?
That was good.